Ithinar's Bloom by H. Jane Harrington. Chapter 8. With the Flow. What honor is there in dying honorably? Just run away and regain your honor tomorrow. Master Kezias. Vaughn stood stump still, likely trying to figure out whether or not the statement had been made in jest. "I said run!" Keir yelled as she shoved Vaughn toward the ground. The unmistakable roar of an inferno wisp erupted behind them, and Keir twisted as she dove, casting a hasty shield. The flaming energy dissipated harmlessly over the protective buckler. "When I release the shield, head for yonder alleyway," she told Vaughn. "What about you?" "I'll be right behind you. Go!" Keir dropped the shield and turned toward the ruins of the house as Vaughn sprang toward the alley. A shadow maze rounded the neighboring dwelling. "You know not what you protect," the cloaker called through his indifferent mask. "I know enough," Keir returned. "The keepers of magic are merciful. Walk away now, and I will forgive your trespasses. You need show the boy no further commitment." Keir tugged the sleeve away from her wrist and held up her left forearm boldly, allowing the mage to drink in the sight of the guardian Vambrace. "This is the depth of my commitment." Keir could not see the mage's expression behind his mask, but he hesitated briefly, presenting her with instant advantage. She launched toward him, catching his sloppy wisp on a shield. When she brought her short sword up in introduction to his neck, the cloaker met it with a blade of his own. He sidestepped, turning to issue a swipe toward her legs. Keir jumped over the low attack and stepped in, smashing her Vambrace against the side of his face. This was Keir's element, close-quarters combat. Her favorite style of fighting was unique enough that most opponents were inexperienced with her technique. Keir preferred her short sword for that very reason. It allowed her to duck in close and combine blade attacks with blows from her left hand. While the enemy fumbled with his longer, heavier sword, Keir could attack quickly and cleanly, with both hands bringing striking benefit. The mage stumbled back, but he quickly regained his footing. Keir allowed him a swipe, catching his sword against her own as steel rang on steel. The blades slid together until they were connected at the hilt, stuck as though they were glued. Keir grinned. She had him, and she knew it. Twisting her short sword aside, Keir took his blade with it. She rammed the knife edge of her left hand into his ribs and felt them crack. As the cloaker doubled over, Keir pulled his mask away. Driving her elbow upward, she connected hard with his nose, sending the cartilage into his brain pan. He collapsed like a blob of snot at her feet. Wasting no time, Keir barreled toward the alley where Vaughn waited. He'd been watching the battle, with his head poking around the corner. "Thought I told you to run," she commented, grabbing his arm in urgency. "I am running. It just took my feet a few minutes to catch up with my brain," Vaughn replied breathlessly. They sped down the alley, but after emerging onto the main thoroughfare, Keir reined in her pace to a brisk walk. "Should we not make haste?" Vaughn asked. "No, don't run now. A fleeing person attracts attention. Just try to blend in with the street folk. It'll be harder to spot us that way if someone's a-lookin'. Besides, we need time to think." "They know I'm here. They'll have more mages in pursuit," Vaughn said. His voice teetered on the edge of panic. "They must have placed wards around the house," Keir reasoned. "They sensed you the moment you breached the perimeter." "I should never have gone." "It's done now, Stick. They likely knew you were about anyway." Keir was relieved when they drew near the air ferry station, for the sewer district was only a street beyond. As they passed the station entrance, another warning tremor tickled her knowings. "Damnation," she whispered. Rounding the corner directly before them were two cloakers with drawn steel. There was little time to act. Any casting she made would be easily shielded, so Keir threw an inferno wisp upwards to the thin ropes holding the air ferry station entrance sign overhead. It came down hard atop the mages, pitching dust into the air. With the diversion, Keir grabbed Vaughn's arm and bolted toward the station entrance, hoping to disappear amongst the bustling crowds in the terminals. They slipped through the throng, weaving in and out of moving queues of travelers. A sudden rush of disembarkers pushed them away from their initial direction, so they merged into the crowd, following the flow of traffic. When the crowd began to thin, they chose a random terminal and made their way along its path. "Do you know where we're going?" Vaughn asked. "Not a clue. Just drift with the current for now." It didn't take long to realize that the path was a dead end. They would have to double back, so Keir came about. A stone's throw down the terminal, a black hood bobbed in an ocean of mops. They were trapped. Keir's heart assaulted her throat in a desperate escape attempt. She swallowed it back to its unhappy place in her chest. "Oh, wencher," she cursed.